when they go in, they almost get into a trance-like state, and their voices become spiritual weapons for healing. Just like, listen, when our artists, there's no white James Brown. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can do what James Brown did.
Right.
James Brown, there was something spiritual going through James Brown. There's something spiritual going through Sam Cooke. Something spiritual going through Muddy Waters. Something spiritual going through Mahalia Jackson. Something spiritual going through Stevie. There's no white Stevie Wonder. There's no white person who's blind who play like that. You understand? Family, we as foundational black Americans, we just got up here, just start touching instruments and just could play masterpieces without lessons. We're like the only group of people who can do that. You understand? You got great white singers and musicians. They got to study and train. You got foundational black Americans. It's been cases you sit them down at a piano and just something hits them and they just know what to play. It just goes through them. There's a certain spiritual conduit that's happening with us. In this movie, it captured a lot of that. And it talks about these vampires who have to latch on to that in order to justify their own existence. That is such a metaphor for white supremacy.
Right. I got that part too.
And the thing is, there's a communion between the church and the juke joint, see? Our culture will fuse the sacred and the secular seamlessly. See, the same voice that could sing in the choir on Sunday, you can go down to the blues club on Saturday. So there's a duality in foundational Black American culture that reflects a spiritual balance, light, shadow, sin, salvation, making foundational Black American culture a full spectrum spiritual experience. And that movie captured that. You see? It's deep because that understanding that duality of foundational Black American culture, that's very, very important. Because in church culture, um, people think, well, the church has been the backbone of Black society, whatever. And there's been other things. And what I like about this movie, they really made the juke joint a metaphor of a lot of Black resistance and spirituality, because the juke joint was just as spiritual. The juke joints were just as spiritually significant, if not more so, than resisting oppression. See, juke joints at the time, um, it was like an emotional cathartic. It helped you. You were out there working in the fields. You had a lot of brothers and sisters who were out here sharecropping. So the juke joint, that provided a place for raw and unfiltered expressions of pain, joy, resistance through blues, and you're directly confronting the trauma of oppression. Whereas the church, you kind of had to be morally elevated. It was also more judgmental in the church as opposed to the juke joint. The juke joint, you can just be yourself and just let your hair down and do your thing.
Right.
The church didn't provide a space for that. In fact, the church would tell you, hey, we're not going to sing things of the world. Don't sing those worldly songs.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have that worldly disposition in here. Whereas the juke joint, you can be spiritual and you can be worldly. You can live of this earth. You can sing secular songs. That duality represents our humanity
Right.
and our strength without judgment. That's why the movie was called Sinners. Y'all been hearing me talk about how we use joy and happiness as a form of resistance. And that's what the juke joint represented. The juke joint represented us, even being in Jim Crow, being under massive oppression. We're all getting together and we're healing ourselves sonically with music, with joy, with laughter, with community. No matter what sin, saint, good guy, bad guy, criminal, crook, whatever, We all get together and heal each other as a community, and that's powerful because a lot of organizing was happening in those so-called seedy juke joints. And y'all heard me talk about this before. During the civil rights era, many of our black leaders and civil rights icons, where would they go organize? They would organize in the juke joints and the pool halls. Those were the places that were not really under surveillance by the FBI because they already knew how to stay out of, they knew that the white supremacists were vampires. So they knew how to keep their places safe from them. They didn't really allow them in there like that. They didn't allow people who seemed like ops in their spaces because a lot of times they had gambling, sometimes they had bootleg liquor, so they always had to be out on the lookout for ops anyway.
And you know what? He got a point. I've seen that in a movie recently, where the FBI or whoever the police watching black establishments, they figuring, oh, juke joints, just a bunch of niggas in there getting drunk, drinking their life away. Good. They not in there, or they in there with their loud music, they playing pool, smoking their reefer, getting drunk and high. They ain't hurting nobody. We ain't gonna mess with them. We're just gonna make sure that they don't get out of line. So we gonna drive through every now and then. So what happens is in the back rooms of those juke joints, you got the Black Panthers back there having meetings at the juke joints. I've seen that in a movie before, where they think that you in there drinking and smoking, you ain't organized. Now that's why they would bomb places like the Black Panther offices and stuff like that, because they figured you in there organizing, you in there trying to work against us. This is the office, so we gon' the police would do that. They would bomb like the US organization. They would bomb their offices and stuff like that and shut them down. So at a juke joint, they would start having their meetings at the juke joint. They figured this is a bunch of niggas getting drunk. They ain't in there organizing. They in there partying their life away. So we ain't gonna mess with them. But in the meanwhile, in the back room of these places, they're having Black Panther meetings and stuff like that. I saw that in a movie recently too. I think it might have been Dead Presidents. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue on.
So they were hypersensitive to strangers or ops coming around. So when they needed to organize for black resistance movements, those are the places that black folks would go to organize low key. That's the place where you can go. They couldn't go to the churches at one point. At first they could. The churches got co-opted. You understand? Them churches got and are co-opted now. Have y'all heard these Sambos in these churches now?
Mm-hmm.
Have y'all heard them? These dudes be in these churches Samboing it up right now. You see? So this movie did a great job going into the juke joint culture and how influential the juke joint culture was on black society.
It's funny. I was thinking about the vampires being invited in the church and all that. Dylan, remember Dylan Ruth, the guy who got invited in by the black people at the church. Remember, he didn't just walk in. He didn't just walk. They invited him in. When they invited him into the church, because you remember what he said. He said that they were so nice to him that he thought about not doing it because they were so kind to him. But then he turned around and he massacred everybody in that church with a gun. Took out everybody in that church. I think he killed like 8 people up in there. They was having choir meeting. A choir meeting, yeah. They invited the vampire in. See what I'm saying?
You understand? Because the juke joint, it preserved a lot of our musical and cultural traditions, more so than the church. Yeah? And again, it went into the whole root work thing. Our root work was a spiritual framework for resistance. It was a supernatural counter to the vampires. Again, when some of the characters were trying to use Bible verses, that wasn't working, so they had to use some of these root work tactics, which is what we had to do in real life. Y'all have heard me talk about some of the root work and hoodoo things that we had to do to resist white supremacy. Frederick Douglass he went to a root worker got an herb, and he told him to keep that herb in your left pocket, and your master will never beat you again. Um, Frederick Douglass got that herb. It was the High John the Conqueror root. And then he beat up his slave owner, and then he got his freedom. A lot of us were using these hoodoo herbs to fight back, to beat up these slave owners, to get them off our backs and get our freedom. They were kind of they were chasing them. They were chasing these damn vampires. So the Red Ones was like, hey man, they're making the block high. We need to get them. So, that was very significant. So that's my review without giving too many spoilers. That's why I'm just trying to talk about it in a broader sense without ruining the movie for everybody. But y'all need to go see it, and you will definitely enjoy it. Very, very good film with a lot of good allegories in it. Let's get some callers in here. I want to see if some of y'all saw the film. Let's get James in the film, and then we get Robbie in the film.
Notice how all the FBA people,
these white, and also if you notice in the movie, they kept calling them devils. They're like, yeah, these white devils, heavy. All right, let me get y'all raise your hands.
And he came back.
But yeah, it was heavy. It was a heavy, heavy, heavy piece.
didn't really like the end in 1990.
That you stay in this spiritual world where you're pretty much stuck as a vampire. I'll let you stay if that's what you want to do, but just as long as you promise not to hurt this guy here who's going to be a musical, their cousin, a musical genius. So there was a respect there. You understand? So that was important. So I get it. I get where they were going with that. And again, a lot of people are confused about the Asians being in the film. Remember, their cousin, a musical genius. So there was a respect there. You understand? So that was important. So I get it. I get where they were going with that. And again, a lot of people are confused about the Asians being in the film. Remember, in Mississippi at the time, there was a small group of Asian immigrants down there. There was a small group. And the reason why they were in the film, again, that shows what happens with the minority coalition. Mm-hmm. They start bringing in bullshit. Right. Again, in the movie, remember, the Asian woman let the vampires in. Mm. Don't forget that part. Don't forget that. She was the one who started getting frantic. She got all bent out of shape. Shit was going wrong, and she started to break and crash out. And then she invited all the damn vampires in and then made everything hot for everybody. That was significant. Because us as foundational Black Americans, we kind of know how to kind of peep things out. Right. We know how to read the room. We know how to kind of assess the situation and understand dangers and kind of figure out what to do and what not to do. And then we get this frantic ass other person of color in here who's not used to that type of pressure, oppressive situation. They crash out and then make everybody else.
That's what happened.
So I think it was very significant that they had that Asian family in there to show that. We got Bushmeat Barrister. Oh Lord, let's see what Bushmeat Barrister has to say. Bushmeat Barrister, what's that? Now raise your hand if you saw the film. Oh, let me get Professor Alon in the building. Professor Alon in the building. What's going on, Professor Alon?
Hey, what's going on, Brother Tariq? Hey, family. I'm going to be real quick. I want to address Bushmeat Barrister having the audacity to say something against a foundational Black American family structure. According to Dr. Dorothy Snyder, West African kings sold their wives. Well, she says the slave trade not.
Okay, I don't care about none of that stuff. Anyway, we want on y'all. So this is just a review of Tariq Nasheed on the movie. You should have sounded on the movie Sinners with Michael B. Jordan, which came out. I saw it the other day, which is a phenomenal movie. Yeah, that movie was really deep. I don't know if I've ever saw so many nuances and so little hidden gems in a movie, in a horror movie. I've never seen that. Like it taught me a lot of stuff when you look at it from a metaphorical standpoint. It really has some deep stuff in it, man. You know, little nuances. Like I got that part about the tragic mulatto. You know, people who look like us that can pass for white infiltrating our spaces, and you know, a lot of that was done with the Black Panthers. People being infiltrated by the FBI and then being put back into our, you know, infiltrating our organizations and our movements, and they be reporting back to the vampires, aka the FBI, the CIA, and the racist motherfuckers who run this country. Anyway, what do y'all think about this video, man? Leave your comments and subscribe to Charles and Ezra. Hit the thumbs up button.